Zack Snyder already appears to be making excuses for the poor performance of what will be his upcoming Netflix film, Rebel Moon. Snyder's already saying he has a director's cut, and it is a completely different film than what will be shown on Netflix. Let's get into this here. Before we do, I'd like to ask you to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos. Wrote this up over at thatparkplace.com. Headline reads, Zack Snyder already making excuses after Rebel Moon gets savaged by critics. Says his director's cut is, quote, almost a completely different movie. Let's get into this here. We'll listen to the man himself briefly. This is what he had to say.
I almost think that the director's cut of Rebel Moon is an alternative reality version. There's almost like two. It's not an extended cut of this movie. It's almost like a different movie, different. It's almost a different universe that movie lives in than this movie.
So he clearly says he thinks that the R-rated cut of Rebel Moon is a completely, almost a different movie. Sounds like completely different movie to me than the PG-13 one. And I think this is due to the fact that the film is already getting savaged by critics. Earlier this week or this month reported that the top critic score for his first part of Rebel Moon had a 0. It has improved recently. It is now up to 4%. But let's look at just Rotten Tomatoes here overall. 22% from the critics on the Tomato Meter score, and then audience score at 72%. The average review for the critics is 3.9 out of 10. 14 fresh reviews and 49 rotten reviews. As I said, top critics currently sits at 4%. It has only 1 fresh review and 23 rotten reviews. The average review score is 2.9 out of 10 for the top critics. So they did not like this film whatsoever. You go over to Metacritic, it's performing a little bit better than on Rotten Tomatoes, which is surprising. Usually you see it performing worse on Metacritic, but it has a 32 Metascore over on Metacritic, but and only 16 mixed reviews, 8 negative reviews, and zero positive reviews over there on Metacritic. And if we want to look at the audience scores, obviously 72% there with Rotten Tomatoes with an average score of 3.8 out of 5. If you go over and look at Metacritic, the user score is 6.1, 55 positive reviews and 37 negative reviews. There's only 1 mixed review on Metacritic. And then on IMDb, the film currently has a 6.3 out of 10. So even people that seemingly have seen the film in the audience don't like it either. Maybe not to the extent that the critics don't like it, but scores in the 6s are not very good. That's middling to average. I would probably argue when I see a film that gets a 6, it's usually like a 3 for the most part. It's usually not very good. So I think Zack Snyder is running damage control here. He's already kind of making excuses saying that, oh, wait, this movie's bad because it's not actually my director's cut. Wait till you see my director's cut and it will be a lot better. I think in this case, it doesn't really make any sense given the fact that he would go on to say that it was actually Netflix's idea to do the director's cut. He would go on and tell the Associated Press, he said, by the way, it was Netflix's idea. They were like, well, what if there was? What if we said, do whatever you want over here, do the PG-13 version, and then go nuts? We don't care. And that really was a thing I've never experienced before. It was bizarre. That's why it almost split the universe. The dimensional rift happened when that was said out loud. I think it will be a crazy experience for fans because it's kind of the fully realized like weirdo heavy metal bizarro land movie where with the PG-13 it can only go so far, and then there are parameters. It has no parameters. Just like what can you think of? So it's a different experience. I love them both. It's really fun that they exist. So I definitely think he's creating excuses here by trying to play this up, saying that this is kind of was Netflix's idea as well, rather than being his idea. He actually catches himself if you listen to the clip. He said, so I was like, well, what if? And then he says it was Netflix's idea. So I think it was probably his idea rather than Netflix's idea. But even if it was Netflix's idea, they're still putting out what looks to be a very poor film. People aren't liking it. And he's already trying to say like, oh, look, I have a director's cut. It's a lot better. It's a lot better. Trust me. This one isn't very good, though. It's because of those meddling studio executives. Well, I think that excuse isn't really going to fly anymore here. I just don't think it works here, given what he's saying about Netflix. So it's just kind of weird. I will say it worked with Warner Brothers. I do think that we saw the evidence of that when they released the Ultimate edition for Batman v Superman. It was a much better film. And then obviously that kind of stirred the pot for the Justice League Snyder Cut. Haven't seen Justice League Snyder Cut. Had no intention of watching a 4-hour movie, but it's hard not to make a better film than the original Justice League. So I would assume it is at least somewhat better, even though it might be longer. So take that as it is, but I do think he is making excuses here. It doesn't really add up, and I think it's because he got savaged by these critics, and the audience review scores don't look that great either. But maybe I'm completely off the mark here. You guys let me know what you think. What do you make of Zack Snyder saying this R-rated director's cut is basically a completely different movie than the PG-13 version? Do you think that he's making an excuse here, or do you think that, hey, he's telling the truth and maybe they are two completely different movies? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Remember to be charitable, but always remember to tell the truth.